Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I ask if you please remain standing for one moment of silence, please, for the memory of Stephen Morley, one of our previous board members who passed away. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we're just going to, we're going to take the liberty to do a couple of reports before we do our presentations. So, Mr. Gass, okay. We're going to start with our elementary principal report, please. Mrs. Keaton.
Tomorrow, Friday, January 15th, we have half-day superintendent's conference day with a tech presentation by Mr. Robert Abrams came, and the teachers enjoyed a idea of the technology presentation. Friday, February 12th, tomorrow, we'll have cafeterias with us. I believe it's an hour and a half at the high school, an hour and a half at the elementary school, and we'll be doing a workshop for a presentation on alcohol and drugs. Also, my teachers will have a lot of opportunities to work on curriculum work. I thank the PTA for hosting Inside Out, the PTA movie night, and the Virtue chocolate sale is on until February 19th. So if you have not had an opportunity to buy your chocolate, they will appreciate your sales. We had Sergeant Crumley with us on Wednesday, February 3rd, for our SET team meeting, which is, she worked us through a scenario, and the school emergency team had to actually figure out what to do. And it was a situation where our phys ed teacher had a heart attack on the field with the children, and we worked through these scenarios so we're better prepared for any crisis situation. We do this a couple of times, 3 or 4 times a year. I would like to publicly thank John Conway for coming and addressing our 3rd and 4th grade students. He did a wonderful job with local history, and he's actually hosting a trip, I want to say in March, to the Minnesink battlefield, and everyone is included to that. He did a great job. We had our honors assembly for 2nd quarter yesterday. We had a lot of students that earned perfect attendance, principals list, and honor roll recognition. We invite everyone to attend our 5th grade dare graduation, which will take place on February 19th at 9:30. Any questions from the board or the audience?
Thank you. And then our secondary principal report from Mr. Krebs.
Okay, and I'm going to start off. Griffin came this evening for the student council and mention a couple of things, and then I have a couple others also to add.
Good evening. I'm a little sick, so I'm not going to talk too long. The only thing I really wanted to mention tonight was the student council has nominated, we have created some nominations where students can, sorry, let me back up. We have allowed students to nominate each other for certain types of awards. So I know that we were talking about these semester awards when it comes to the principal's list and honor roll, but we've created some more awards that go into things like art and student involvement to try to award people for these other like diverse areas. So grades 7 through 12, these are like the different categories that we have. We have excellence in future readiness, and 2 people were nominated for that. We have Alyssa McGrail and Willis Mann. We have excellence in student involvement. We have Christopher Weber, Emily McGrail, Lindsay Kelty, and Samantha LaPut. We have excellence in student government, and that is myself. We have excellence in community service, and that was also Samantha LaPut. We have excellence in athletics. We have Lindsay Kelty, Sheila Burns, Samantha Clemens, Kelsey Collins, and Jordan Lapis. We have excellence in music. That would be Jackson McGrail, Kayla Horan, Olivia. Apologize, I can't say the last name. I'm not going to butcher it. And Julia Curley. And then we have excellence in art, which goes into theatrical arts, like studio art and so on. We have Casey Weiss, Eva Corchata, Julia Curley, and Emily Amoroso. So out of these 20 or so people, we're going to have a special committee pick that will be able to select probably 5 or 6 of these individuals where we will be giving them an award. And we have a plaque and certificate and all sorts of goodies. So congratulations to them, and I hope at the next board meeting I can announce the winners of our awards. So that's other than that, that's really all I have.
Thanks, Griffin.
Thank you.
I want to just report to you on a couple of things. Our SAT prep class has over 36 students that have enrolled in that, and our PSAT 10, we will be offering that to all of our 10th graders. The PSA 10 will come up on February 23rd, and the SAT prep class is due to begin on February 20th. So I reported 26 at one time, and we have a little bit more than that. Scheduling at the junior senior high school is continuing. The course description guide is posted on our junior senior high school webpage with hard copies available in the office. This is, I gave this to each one of the board members. This is our current course guide. It really came out very nice. Usually we've just had a couple of pieces of paper, but we utilized Holly Brocker from our Ulster BOCES communication co-cert to assist us in putting that together. So I gave you a copy of this. This was our first go-round with this, so I'm pretty pleased that it has all the information out there, and it's also posted on our website. And the guidance counselors are currently meeting with kids to go over what would be their interest for next year. Upcoming on February 29th, we've got a nice group of people here. You're going to pick up tickets for thrills, chills, magic, and a chance to support the Eldred students. And it will all be found here under the big top at the Yankee Doodle Circus. It's coming up on February 29th at 6:30 right there at the junior senior high school. The evening of family fun benefits the Eldred School District's PBIS efforts and provides an exciting opportunity for all. Tickets are $14.75 a piece, and you get 2 free tickets for children or teens with your adult purchase. And additional children would be $5 each if purchased in advance. So those are the tickets. The information is also on our website. It's on our Facebook page. So if you're interested in coming to the circus, that's a night that I'm sure we're going to have a lot of younger kids and a lot of older kids that kind of put that together. So thanks to PBIS for that.
And the night, what's the date again?
It's Monday, the 29th. Yes, this February at 6:30 right here. On March 1st, we will have our annual Global Studies Fair. That's a Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. with a snow date of Thursday, so hopefully we'll have it. It'll be in our gymnasium. Students are currently researching a topic of their choice, writing a paper, and will create a visual representation of one of their Global Fair projects. At the Global Fair, each student will display his or her visual representation and paper to the community. So that's a community event also. It usually is one of our larger events that we've had here and pretty much packed the gymnasium with all of the students' work. So I'd like to invite everyone to attend that. And also on March 5th, we have a large contingent of students that are participating in the All-County Music Festival that will be taking place in Liberty this year. And I'll have an update on the names of the kids and things that participated in that for our next board meeting. And that's all I have to share with you this evening. Any questions?
Mr. Krebs, this is very well done.
How is that distributed done?
This is, you can actually go to our website and click on it and get the copies that are here. We have these copies in our main office, and we also have it available. We sent out an email to the staff indicating our course selection guide.
Was it sent home to the parents? Or
Yes. The kids can pick up a copy of this, but it's on our website.
So it was digitally sent home?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, but yeah, that was our first go-around. We took a couple of examples from other schools and kind of incorporated it in.
I see we still have AP, history, physics, and music theory, and we still have the college courses. So I saw there was some discussion last month about AP versus college courses.
Yeah, we kind of put it in our guides. We're going to see where it plays out with the students and their interests, and then we'll come back together in another month or so, probably 2 months, to decide where we stand with each of our course selections. But we put it out there in our course selection guide.
The AP courses of which are listed as potential offerings, it's going to depend on interest of the students and also on some details I need to work out with the Faculty Association.
Right. Oh, yeah, anticipated.
So there are minimum numbers for AP in college?
We've kind of stuck with a minimum number for all of our classes at 10, but sometimes we have to go below that to offer kids some opportunities. So it's not a set in stone, but that we'd like to have all of our classes have a large number of kids in them, but being a small school, sometimes you can't fit it all in. Sure.
Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Krebs.
You're welcome.
Ms. Lewis?
So the business office is busy as always. From the food service department, our point of sale system is scheduled for online operation. April in the junior senior high school and May at Mackenzie. We're out a month because we're having an audit from the state on our food service in March, and we couldn't coordinate the point of sale and the audit. So we pushed it out because we want the point of sale to start up the month smoothly. Last month, it was reported the district was at 38.8% of participation for free and reduced lunch, which is a correct figure. So that caused us to go and do some additional research on qualifications, and when we spoke with state and federal representatives, we discovered that it is direct certifications through SNAP and Medicare that must reach the 40% mark.
As opposed to who applies to us? just
Correct.
us.
So we are currently at 25% of direct certified students through SNAP and Medicare. And, we will continue to monitor it, but I don't foresee in the near future us qualifying for a total free and reduced lunch program in the district.
What is SNAP?
Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program.
I think it's basically the a WIC program for children that get older. So it's
Yes.
food for children.
Yes.
So the 38.8% is calculated how?
That is overall participation for our free and reduced program.
So what's this SNAP and medical? I'm sorry.
SNAP and Medicare are the direct, those are the students who are certified directly through SNAP and Medicare.
Right. And what's
And
that?
those are the students, that's the part of student population that needs to meet 40%.
Right. And it's presently at
25%.
Ruth, you might not know this, but the difference between the 38 and the 25%, do you think that there are kids in that 13% that do qualify for SNAP or Medicaid and don't know that and the parents haven't applied for it maybe?
There's always that possibility. I mean, some parents don't want to rely on public assistance. They want to provide for their families themselves. I suppose that possibility is out there. I mean, we certainly can focus on getting applications out, but those direct certifications come to us.
No, it might be worthwhile if there's a local agency that runs those programs to let them know that we have this discrepancy, and there might be an opportunity for them to make people aware that they might be able to enroll in these programs because they could use the additional help if they're eligible. That's the difference. Or it might just be that our criteria is more liberal than that
You
program.
raise a good point. Do you know what the difference is between being eligible for SNAP or Medicare and being eligible for free lunch?
Not, but I will bring it back to you.
I mean, I don't want to give you extra work at this point. with
I
budget
don't
and
think
everything.
it's that big.
If you can find out, great. If not, this is obviously an ongoing concern of ours, so.
It might not be something
whenever.
that we could do, if there may be something the county
I'd
could
like to
actually try
find out.
to dig into it.
Right.
There might be a family that could qualify that might not even know.
I know of multiple families that qualify and will not take public assistance because they choose not to take public assistance. And that's their right.
So I'll get that information back.
Thanks.
We will continue to work in food service to implement improvements for quality, quantity, and selection. However, that is, we do have to maintain the child nutrition guidelines and requirements set forth by the Healthy, Hungry, Free Kids Act of 2010. So we have to remember that. But we are planning to work on it. So it is in the hop into the project. Transportation, last month's meeting, some things were taken out of context. There was a lot of unrest in the transportation department shortly after our meeting last month. I want to make it perfectly clear that this district does not and does not currently wish to privatize the transportation department. I met with the bus drivers, I met with the mechanics and the supervisor of transportation, and tried to quell their unrest. We had open communication, a nice conversation. They know my door is open, they can come to me. I will avail myself to be more present in the transportation department. Because of that, last month I had implemented weekly meetings with the athletic coordinator and the transportation supervisor together to work on the extra trips and the athletic runs and get that situation solved. And I have to say that it has proved to be very beneficial. So we are really moving forward on that.
Can I just add to that? We've never had a conversation about privatizing our transportation. Never, ever. Just so, you know, for the record, never had a conversation about it.
Well, didn't we touch on it? I mean, we never discussed
We
it.
had the study, the transportation study done, and it supported essentially what we were doing to continue to do that. That's as close as we ever got.
But we touched on it last month and we never discussed it. We never made it a discussion.
Yeah, what I think I've heard, maybe I take this out of context too, because I know the original transportation study showed that we should continue to do what we're doing. Obviously, we need to do. What I thought I heard someone say was that because we're having a difficult time recruiting and retaining bus drivers, that at some point in the future, we might have to reconsider doing another transportation study. That's what I thought I heard last month. I think that's what probably caused the concern. So, did we hear that, and are we just say that we're not going to do that?
That has to come from the board to do the study. We were having a very broad range discussion on transportation. Only the board can make that decision, and that's the bottom line. Our job is to look at the information we're presented with and bring it to the board. The board is to determine what they wish to do with that information. So when we were asked to make projections, we went based on the information we had available to us. No one said we were contracting out our bus service. No one said we were going to contract out our bus service. Nobody said we were going to do a transportation study. These were all things that could happen, and I think the key word you used yourself, Brian, was could, okay? And sometimes it's lost in translation, but I think what Doug was saying is reaffirming the board's commitment to our transportation department.
Good.
We actually have had meetings in the past month since the last board meeting with the transportation department, with the coordinator and Ms. Lewis and myself, looking at ways of enhancing our fleet going forward. And we'll be bringing a proposal within the next 6 months to the board for the subsequent fiscal year to replace several of our buses, the buses that are aging out, because our projections are we will need to turn over most of the fleet within the next 5 to 10 years. Because many, Carrie, is that an accurate statement, right?
Yeah.
Because we bought some buses that had some lower mileage on it, but we're gonna have to flip the fleet probably completely in the next 5 to 10 years, and we're putting together a strategic plan to do that.
I am working with the staff at the bus garage also. They were going to get back to me with a list of suggestions for recruiting drivers, how we could move forth in doing that. So we are looking at that, and we're looking to develop ads and some advertising that could promote that, and the associated cost of becoming a certified driver. We're researching that and looking at that as well.
Are we only looking for people with CDL already? to be our trainers?
No, if there's someone out there, we'll train them.
To complete CDL training?
So moving on to buildings and grounds, I also met with union representatives, the CSEA union reps, to discuss the possibility of changing the scheduling of staff so that there will be someone scheduled regularly on Saturdays. This district is very busy. There are people in and out all week long, and not to have a custodian in the building on Saturday doesn't make any sense because it pushes up the overtime when you have to have somebody here. And I'd like to cut back on the overtime, and I'd like to have someone here on Saturday. I asked them if we could do it on a voluntary rotating basis, so the same person would be up every Saturday, but the union has not gotten back to me. And if they're not willing to do it on a voluntary rotating basis, then we'll have to go according to CSCA contract.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Are you talking one person or two persons?
It would be one person during the day.
Does voluntary rotating mean they decide the rotation?
I would decide the rotation. I just want them to voluntarily agree to the rotation.
And the reason I asked that is because years ago, just something to think about, we had somebody working on the weekends, we did one-on-one, and fell down these stairs right here and was there all night long.
I did think about that, and I am concerned about that sometimes even for our evening custodians when they are in the building alone, and I directed them all that they're not to leave anyone in the building alone. And if by chance someone's out, particularly at Mackenzie, because they only have two, they are to text me when they leave the building at night, so that I know that they've left. So I understand that concern. And, that I wouldn't want that to happen, so we may have to react to that as well. It was also brought to my attention by Mr. Krebs through a written request that we need to have a stronger focus on recycling in the district. So I have implemented steps to address that so that our recyclables will be separate from our garbage. The electric on the modular unit outside has been removed and the roof has been repaired, and we have hired 2 additional substitute cleaners, which has been a great relief when we have people out, particularly on the second shift, so that we can maintain cleanliness of the buildings. And it's nice to have the same people because they get used to the routine of the building. The budget, we are going to go over the budget a little later, I think, so I've just been working on that, and I'll go over that during the presentation. The one thing I did want to touch on is that we did develop a budget committee this year, consisting of 2 members of the Faculty Association, 2 committee members, and a representative of the Board of Education. The first meeting went very well, information was shared. The goal of this committee is to have open communication with the community and be able to get correct information out. And if people are educated in the process and what is happening, when they hear incorrect information, they can provide the correct information, which is going to go a long way to community relationships and support of this district. So I'm looking forward to working with those people. I did a lot of research for the veterans exemption, and I think you all received it. I hope you understood it. It took me days to wrap my head around it, but I finally got it.
Which we'll
With the help of
Very much.
Mr. Lawrence, of course, he assisted me.
Welcome.
And the initial service request for Orange Ulster BOCES, Ulster BOCES, and Sullivan County BOCES have all been submitted. So we're in good shape.
Thank you. District report, Mr. DeBoer.
It's going to be short. Ruth, Mr. Lawrence and I have been meeting since early December to hammer out the preliminary budget. Ruth will start presenting that tonight. We will be presenting it pretty much in the same fashion as we have in prior years, where we will be reserving any discussion on our revenue side until after April 1st, when we hope that the legislative budget will be in place. Right now, we're working with projected numbers from the executive budget and prior year's figures. We much prefer when we get down to our revenues that we discuss as hard numbers as we have available to us. So we will be focusing the first couple of budget presentations on the expense side and the final presentation on the revenue side. As we go through it line by line, item by item, the only thing I want to keep in front of the board is, at the moment, the tax levy limit is just about zero. So the budget is balanced using fund balance and a limited amount of projected reserves. These are all projections. If a line item is increased, we need to correspondingly decrease another line item, or we need to increase the amount that we will withdraw from our reserves to balance the budget or increase the levy. So we're trying to have this as revenue neutral as possible. So if it's the board's desire to add $500,000 to line B, the prudent thing to do is going to remove from multiple lines or a single line enough money to offset that cost. But we think that it's a responsible, balanced budget proposal, and I know Ruth has been sequestered in her office for the past 2.5 weeks putting the final numbers together, and as with every year, these numbers continually fluctuate. We will get more information from one of the three BOCES we deal with. We will get more information from the state. I had an unofficial conversation with some people today who had recently met with Aileen Gunther on our behalf, and there's indications that bullet 8 is coming. Until I have the letter in my hand telling me how much money that is, we can't count it into our numbers, but it is always good to know. So with that, that's all I really have.
Any questions, Bob? Okay, I have just a couple things. I'll try to be as brief as possible. The first item that I want to bring up is, for those of you who haven't been here in a couple of recently, we have provided some refreshments, so please help yourself. Number two, I was forwarded an email from Bonnie forwarded an email to me. A community member asked about meeting procedures and exactly how we do how our meetings put together. Things like the consent agenda and when public comment and so on. So essentially, the consent agenda is, in many boards of education, each item is a motion to accept and a second and a discussion and an approval for every single line through the whole through this whole agenda. Several years ago, a superintendent, I think Charlotte did, right? Did Charlotte? A previous superintendent created our consent agenda, which essentially takes all the items that need the board's approval and lumps them into one big motion, and we make that motion and second it, have a discussion, basically for the whole agenda. For tonight, it's 4.01 to 7.05. So all those items will be adopted or approved at one time. Okay? So then there's the question of public comment. Previous to me being here, we only had one public comment, and it was all the way at the end of the meeting, right before adjournment. And you know, myself and my fellow board members, we decided that if you folks came here because you wanted to have, you know, you had something to say about one of the things that was on our consent agenda, we needed to hear from you before we voted, not afterwards. Sort of counterproductive to hear what you have to say after it's already said or after it's already voted. So we created item number 3, public comment, which is limited to the consent agenda items only. Okay, so anything that's on our consent agenda, you can talk to us about at that point, so that we have some idea how our constituents feel about what we're about to do. So that's the consent agenda things. The public comments. After that, you know, it's new business and old business. Whatever we have carried over is old business. Whatever we're walking in today is new business, and that's basically it. Are there any questions about that? Just the procedural, the nuts and bolts stuff? Because one of us would be happy to answer that, I think. And I'm going to try to put that in some sort of a logical format, like graphically somehow. like write it out?
Hey, Doug, I might have spoken to the same person that emailed Bonnie, I'm not sure. But
Okay.
somebody made that suggestion to explain these things as well. Somebody, recently became coming to these meetings, and it does get confusing when you're sitting in the audience, whether you speak at consent agenda or wait till the end.
Totally agree.
But there was another question too that I thought came up in that, which was the way that we interact as a board. In other words, that why do we have the kind of discussions that we have? Why don't we have those discussions outside of the meetings? Of course, we can't. So the suggestion was that we put together a kind of guide like you're suggesting, Doug. But my thought was maybe we should have maybe a student do that, or use a learning experience to kind of figure out what the meeting governance is and how we operate as a project, and they can learn from what we have to guide. Didn't come from me, it's not my idea.
Well,
I think it's a good idea.
I'm totally okay with that. I'm just not the kind of person that says, yeah, this is a great idea, here, you do it. I'm typically the person that says, this is a good idea and I'll take care of it. So if there's someone that, Mr. Krebs, if you know of a student that would be interested in that sort of thing, that's wonderful. Otherwise, we'll take care of it. Thank you.
It's really a guide for the folks that come to the meetings to understand the meeting flow when they come to the meetings.
They may wonder why we don't interact. It's weird. I don't know if you wonder, I don't know if any of you wonder why we don't interact, like, have a meeting with you. It's very strange, actually, but this is a board meeting in public. So we are in a meeting, you're not. You get to watch and listen and then you have 2 cents time to comment. Now, we fudge that a little bit, sometimes we have a little bit more interaction, but basically this is a meeting that we hold in public, not a meeting with you, but a meeting in front of you. Very strange, but that's the way it's done in all school boards, and that's I don't know, maybe towns too. It's the nature of the way we do it. So it seems odd sometimes that we don't interact like we would find normal, but that's why. I mean, it's not that we don't want to.
I think we probably do more than other school boards do, and I think that's a
We do
good
much
thing.
more.
I like that.
We do. Okay, so, all right, so let me just move on. I promised I'd be brief, I swear I will. The second thing I want to bring up was, and I know JJ's going to kill me for this, I went to a basketball game for the young boy from Mackenzie, the Courage for Connor game. What a tremendous, Carter, excuse me. My fault. What a tremendous event that was. You guys just did a great job. Well done. And anybody else that was remotely involved, kudos to all of you. That's just tremendous. And to hear the kind of, I'm not going to quote any money or anything like that, but the amount that was raised was wonderful. Very good. And just a very, very brief story, okay? The whole transportation thing is very near and dear to me. So I remember my daughter riding the school bus, and so the bus would come down the hill, and they'd let Kate off, so she didn't have to go all the way to the bottom of the hill, all the way down to the lower end of Antioch, and turn around and come back. So the bus stops, and nobody's home. Kate's getting ready to get out, and all of a sudden, Kate tells me the door closes and the bus takes off. And I'm like, Kate, what the heck's going on? Why is that? She said she really didn't know. Do you remember?
It was about the bear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Carrie pulls up to my house, and there's a bear in my backyard. And Katie has to go around the back of the house and use her key to the back door to get in the house. And Carrie closes the door and says, nope, you're not getting out. So
Actually, that's not how it went.
okay, but listen, it's years ago, so.
I'm impressed that you remember. It means a lot that you did remember. But she was already off the bus. And I remember,
see, I
I
didn't
shut
know
the door and starting to pull away, and then I seen the bear, and I knew she had to go around. And so I'm like, oh my God, now by now, Kate doesn't know why I'm stopped, but all the kids on the bus know why I'm stopping. They can all see the bear, they're all freaking out. I'm like, I remember opening the window, hey, come here, come on. And she's looking at me like, what's, you know, and I'm like, come on, back to the bus. And she got back on the bus, and then when she realized that she'd seen it, it was like, oh goodness.
She was either like, she was like third or fourth grade.
But
I
it
know
means
that.
a lot, they need to remember that.
And I'm gonna tell you something, you know, so when we talk about transportation, you know, I'm very happy with transportation. Just leave it at that.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and, yeah. So, I have two more very quick things, and this is way longer than I ever take. The first thing is, yeah, I know. The first thing is, Mrs. Bleefernick is getting an award from NISBA for outstanding, it's a board excellence award. So Mrs. Bleefernick gets an award.
You have enough points.
I have points?
You have enough points.
I didn't know I had
You
points.
have points, the letter explains
Doesn't get
everything.
me anything but.
The certificate.
Okay, I got it.
Okay?
Hey, thank you.
Okay, and the last thing on my list is 2 years ago, at this, you know, geez, it's probably 2 years to the day, we sat here and you know, it was 5 minutes before you had to pass a veterans tax exemption. Otherwise, our veterans weren't going to receive this tax exemption. And I remember having this conversation, again, this was open government at its finest, I think, because we were all engaged in this conversation, and I remember specifically where it was. I remember saying that listen, we really want our veterans to get, you know, all that they're entitled to, but we need to make sure that the constituents aren't harmed by it. That's, you know, so I forget how I said it, but I remember saying it, and I remember the gentleman with the Air Force cap on said, so how little does it have to cost? I remember it, like yesterday. It was 2 years ago. Almost as good as the bear story, but I get the bear story wrong. So it was like a punch in the stomach, you know, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. So anyway, we passed that resolution that evening to adopt that exemption, and somehow, and we were the first ones in the county to do it. So we didn't have any footsteps to follow, we didn't have any guidance to follow. So apparently everybody else passed a different one afterwards, so we need to put ours where everyone else's is. So I'd like to make this motion. Approval regarding the Veterans Tax Exemption in Real Property Tax Law Section 458A. The Board of Ed of the Eldred Central School District hereby adopts the Veterans Tax Exemption at state law basic maximum as follows. Wartime 12,000, combat zone 8,000, disability 40,000, and any statutory changes in value in the future. The exemption will include the Gold Star Parents Veterans exemption of 12,000/8,000 effective immediately. And I'm going to make that motion. I'd like a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Then let's vote. Brian?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Amador?
Yes.
And I'll say yes. So, we did our best, we didn't, that's that.
There was no intent, we just. To you, because that's why we do it. To you.
Please, Mr. Formici.
Comments.
Oh, sorry.
On behalf of Veterans of Foreign Wars, American Legion, I am the county commander of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, as well as the Tustin Highlands, and the post commander here in town. I'd like to thank the board We're getting in line with other school districts in the county. To date, there's only one school board that hasn't passed the tax exemption, and that's Roscoe. Last night, we were up at Liberty, and it looks like they're going to pass it.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much on behalf of all the veterans here in the town.
Appreciate it.
And thank you for coming, everybody, for your support. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for your support.
Okay, if no one has any questions for me, that's the end of my. So then we're going to go back up to 103 for Mr. Gas. Sorry, Mr. Gas.
Mr. Gass's report is a continuation of what you asked for in the fall, a general report from the various coordinators and supervisors on what they did.
Before I start on this, I just had a quick my board report of kind of what's happened over the last month, athletic-wise, and kind of what's going to go on in the future a little bit. First off, winter season's just about ending. Modified JV sports, they'll be all done as of February 20th, so they can get focused on the spring sports. The varsity teams, they'll be getting ready for sectional play. We have some individuals in wrestling and in indoor track who are getting ready for sections, representing the school down West Point. Let's see, the youth basketball program is underway over at Mackenzie. We have Mr. Dave Binkowski and Mr. Ryan Jasper are both heading that up, and we also get a lot of volunteers from our varsity teams going down to help both boys and girls, helping out with the the 3rd, 4th, 5th graders who are participating. So they're doing a good job down there. And the last thing Mr. Reiser hit on it when I talked, we had the Courage for Carter on February 4th. We had attendance of somewhere around 500 people, and in one night we raised, a little over $7,000. So it was incredible. We had the stage open, every seat was taken, people had standing room only, and when they walked out of the hallway and made their way to center court for the first time, it was so loud it went like silent. It was deafening. It was amazing. And then if anybody watched Cable 6 News at all, they were there, and you can just see like the smile on Peyton, the older brother, and Carter's face right in center court. It was great. And then we had other news sources there. We had an article in the River Reporter, the Sullivan County Democrat, Times Herald Record, all about awareness for ALD. So we got out there in a lot of news sources and a lot of positive press. And so it was a big event, very successful, and that kind of rounded up the what's happened in the last month.
What about this year youth field trip?
Oh, and the varsity and JV girls basketball team met up with Tammy Reese, who used to go to school here. She was able to get them down on the floor at Syracuse before a girls basketball game. They kind of got the grand tour of the whole place. It was, from hearing back from the girls and the coaches, it was just a great experience. Syracuse won, which even made it better. But overall, they had a lot of fun up there, and we got to thank Tammy for getting us the tickets and helping out with everything. So, that was one big kind of field trip that the girls basketball team took. All right. So that's it for the board report. So this is on to athletics and what the athletic department does here. Yep. There it goes. I don't know which button I hit to make it work. For me, this is for my position as athletic coordinator. General description is I oversee the entire athletic program. All the teams, all the coaches, facilities, just look over everything, make sure everything's running smoothly as far as athletics goes. Some planning. I communicate with other athletic directors and we coordinate our games. We have to go out and find our own non-league games, which are schools that are not our size. Generally, they're bigger. Me and the coaches will talk about who we want to play, try to get some home games, also some away games. You got to be fair. And, so we make a couple phone calls and we make those games happen. We also have game cancellations. If that happens, we got to find a date that works for both parties and see what facilities open that we can use. So, once again, more phone calls and just kind of planning. I coordinate with the maintenance department to know when we need to line the field for a football game or a soccer game, line the field for softball, baseball, and gymnasium set up when we have our basketball games in the winter. Or we actually have, we held a wrestling match here this year also, so we had set up for that. Coordinate with transportation. I speak with Melissa, who's the head of transportation, a lot, almost every day. And we got to plan our travel dates, the number of people on a bus, departure, return times, just to make sure that the kids are getting there in time to warm up properly before their game, and return times so parents can kind of have an idea of when they're going to be back from their event. Supervision, I go to all the home events. If anyone ever goes to any of our games, you'll see me there. I usually try to walk around, say hi. People say I like to talk, so I talk a lot. What else I do is I find chaperones. A lot of our teachers will help chaperone the events. Security staff, whether we need one or two, depending on how big the event is that we're having, or what school we're playing. If it's a rivalry, we like a little extra security. Ambulance at certain events, which is mostly the football games. Constables at certain events, so the Thursday Purge for Car event was a huge one. We had constables here, and they'll come to football games, and they'll come to soccer games, and at most of the basketball games just to check on things and see how everything's going. I also make sure practices are going according to plan, make sure that all the teams are getting field usage, use of the gym, and just that everything's going according to schedule. I get on the first one. I get help from the nurse with this. But we maintain the student athlete records, their physicals, which the school offers once in the fall, once in the spring. They can go get their physical, covers them for the full year. Permission forms and health history forms. We gotta make sure those are all handed in. Make sure they have parent permission, and health history forms just in case maybe they're allergic to bees or something like that. This way the coaches are aware of that. Athletic gear, we manage athletic gear, maintain the equipment, and we got to purchase and replace equipment every year. Some bats, are unsafe, so we got to purchase new bats, different basketballs, jerseys, uniforms, all that stuff needs to be purchased and kept up to date. We have to keep all that within the athletic budget. We're given a budget at the beginning of the year, and we got to stay within that. So, while we're trying to get all the kids, new and improved stuff to give them the best competitive edge they can get, we also have to stay within the budget. Also maintain coaches' compliance with New York State coaching standards, making sure they have CPR, first aid, they do their DASA training, fingerprinting. There's also coaches courses you need to take in New York State to get a coaching license. So all those things are kept in files in my office to make sure we're up to date and up to code with all that. So once a month I go to league meetings, and then every other month I go to section meetings. I get up to date rules, regulations, get a vote. Eldred gets just as much of a vote as a big school like Monroe Woodbury. We all count as one, so we make votes on different rules and regulations, because the state comes down with things we may disagree with, and as a section we can, we can go against them. I'm on the eligibility committee for the league, which is making sure that kids who transfer schools are eligible to participate in high school athletics and are staying within the rules of New York State. Also, besides the events I attend here, I also go to large events for our athletes away from school, whether it's league championships for cross country or indoor track, state tournaments. We may have a wrestler going up there. We could have a basketball team go up there. I'll go to state tournaments. Eastern State Wrestling, which is the biggest wrestling event on the East Coast, and that happened about 3 weeks ago over at Sullivan County Community College. And then we have a scholar athlete breakfast, which we go to at the end of the year. And I also help with planning the end of the year banquet for the varsity athletics. Last couple years we've had it in the gym. We set it up. We honor our varsity athletes. We have some dessert, and they get awards, and every coach gets to kind of step up and say something about their team in the year they had. So nice event. And Michelle Gallo, one of our guidance counselors, she helps out a lot with that event. So.
I have a question. While you have our veterans here, can you touch base on what you're doing for the veterans, the third quarter of the football game?
Yes.
The baseball game?
Yeah. At the end of the third quarter, we honor veterans. We'll stop the game. Our team will come out, and in most cases, the other team will come out, the visiting team, and we make 2 straight lines, and we bring a veteran out from the stands into center court. We'll say a couple, like 4 or 5 sentences, whatever information they want to give us about their, what years they were serving, what part of the service they were, what they did, and we honor them and give them a T-shirt and thank them for protecting our house.
Your service.
Yeah, and it's been overwhelmingly positive from everyone I know.
You need to know in advance when a veteran's going to attend a football game?
Yeah, if anyone wants, we are always looking for veterans to honor. So I know going forth next year, there was talk with Mr. Binkowski about getting to a meeting or somehow getting names and putting together a schedule for next year. We didn't know how it was going to take off this year, and because it's been very good, and when I go to my meetings once a month, other schools are talking about it and asking, how we got that started. So it's been a real positive thing. We're always looking for veterans to honor because you deserve to be honored.
Well, I'm going to bring it up in my county meeting. I am the county commander for all the VFW posts in Sullivan County.
Okay.
And when we hold our next meeting, I'll bring it up to my veterans meeting and let them know, because we have VFWs all over the county, Monticello, we just closed Liberty, unfortunately, Woodburn, they're just all white label, Monticello, so I will bring it up and let them know.
Bring it up, man.
So maybe they can come on board with their schools and do the same thing.
Yeah, it'd be
For
great.
their community too.
If we could make a whole county thing, that'd be great. I mean, we're the first ones, so.
I'll bring it up in my next meeting.
And thank you, JJ, for doing that.
Thank you.
That's right.
We go.
Wasting paper. Take one, pass it So today we're going to review our preliminary budget for the 16-17 school year. What was uploaded last week, if you've accessed that, I have been working on it since, and I gave you an updated copy today. So you should get rid of the old one unless you made notes and look at the new one. So our instructional program budget, it maintains our current staffing and programming for K-12 and interscholastic athletics. It provides increased funding for our students with disabilities, and it's staff budgets are still preliminary. We're pending the outcome of the Faculty Association negotiations and the final review of professional staff allocations. So this is a preliminary budget. It's a working document. It's what I refer to as a living document because it goes through changes for the next couple of months. Our BOCES rates are not final, but we have estimated the costs pending the receipt of the preliminary service contracts. It includes funding for a public information poster. It provides funding for the transition of one special education teacher's aide to a special education instructor. And it anticipates technology funding and expenditures based on E-rate funding. So we could have some improved technology initiatives. The general support budget, it maintains current staff in all administrative and instructional support areas, maintains budgets for legal, financial, auditing, insurance, educational advisors, service providers, and it includes funding for a shared part-time account clerk that in the business office we will be sharing with Sullivan West, which you had approved at a previous meeting. It includes support for training for food service staff that is required for professional standards as per the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010. And operation and maintenance budgets include funds for facility repairs in a preventative maintenance manner, so we can avoid any catastrophic repairs. And that's pretty much the presentation. Are there any questions as far as line items on the budget?
I have a few questions. It seems like just in a general sense, a lot of the BOCES costs have increased significantly. If I go through and I look at line items where there are increases, they all seem to be the BOCES services for the various categories. Is there a reason for that?
That is correct. BOCES services have increased, but those are expenses that are required by law. We also have increased student participation in BOCES services, which drive the costs up.
Well, some of these seem to be non-instructional things. Like
Is there something you're looking at?
Yeah, so under finance, it's hard with the categories because on this year's budget, the categories are not out on the proposed budget, they're not, so I had to go through and cross-reference it. So 1310 line item under finance, which is business administration. You see the 1310
Yes.
section. Under BOCES services, there's an increase of for contractual expenses for BOCES business administration, $17,000. It's an 80% increase.
That actually, what that line is, that contractual line, that is not BOCES expense. That contractual line is where we had our interim consultant business administrator budgeted, and now that is where we are budgeting our part-time account clerk. So it is going up because our share for the account clerk is $37,000. So we will no longer have the interim business official by contract, but we will have the part-time account clerk.
We're doing this through BOCES, that's why it's called BOCES.
It's not through BOCES. The reason it's under contractual is because the employee is a Sullivan West employee. So we will
BOCES is
sign
helping
an
us.
intermunicipal agreement to pay those costs, which is contractual. So that's why that is in that line. So that's not BOCES.
Okay, that makes sense. So some of these are small number value, but significant percentage increases, like on 1430, which is personnel BOCES services, 1460, which is record management BOCES services, and 1480, which is public information services. Public information services will increase to 316%.
Yes, and that's because we introduced the public information poster that helps us with our website and our newsletter, rather than having it done in-house. Now you're going to go through BOCES to have those things done, and it is cost savings to the district. So while it looks more in that line, you will see it increased elsewhere.
We're saving $19,000.
I would say probably very close with the stipend that we would normally be paying, but it would be close. It's multiple services, it's not just the newsletter. Also. We have a representative from Orange Ulster who comes here, and she takes photos when we have activities, and puts them, puts them in the River Reporter, the Democrat.
I think the PR stuff is really great.
And that's mostly what that is.
Another explanation, I don't have to interrupt, is that wasn't budgeted this year. That was something I did as a pilot, so it was added in after the fact. So year to year, a significant increase was, it was not budgeted last year. So that explains that. But we added that on August 8th.
So there's just one last thing, and this is on, I just asked a question. Under 2630, instructional media, I think it's in the computer-assisted instruction category. And there's a significant increase there. It's a $35,000 increase, 31%. Computer-assisted instruction, what is that?
And that is under the equipment line.
Under equipment,
Yes,
2630.
that is, this district was awarded E-grade funding, about $500,000 over a 5-year period.
So that's gonna
That
offset.
is an offset by revenue. We will not spend that unless we receive the revenue. But you have to budget for it. Because it is equipment, once you adopt the budget, you really can't spend the equipment lines unless you come back and.
That's the smart one. That's the
Smart
smart
one.
one.
Yes.
But it's
The
so,
problem with the smart school bond is just what you said, we have to initially budget for it and then get it back. That's the
oh yeah, this is your wheelhouse, Doug. So is that computer-assisted instruction, is that instruction? Or is that testing?
That's not testing, that's smart boards, that's laptops, that's desktop computers, all classroom instructional stuff. For example, one of the big things we're looking to do, once we figure out how the funding works, we need to swap out all the smart boards that we can. They're first generation, they're 9 years old. It may not sound like a long time, but they're dying on us, and I'm replacing one here, one there. It's time to go to the next generation. But we can't spend the money, or collect the money until we spend it. So we got to budget this in as a line item. And when we do the revenue, there'd be an offsetting revenue line. But until we know how to collect it, and what we're going to do is we're going to spend that much, put it in, see how long it takes them to give it back. And if it takes too long, we're going to have to rethink the whole plan.
Yeah, and just additionally, any of this school district, this is what I do for a living. So, and any of my colleagues, we're just taking really baby steps. You know, nobody is making a big commitment for a huge expense. Everybody's just, you know, gonna like we're doing here, putting in for a small amount, and then seeing how long it takes for the reimbursement to take place. So.
That bond was passed in November 2014. The money has yet to be bonded by the state. Not a plan has been completely approved by SED, and there is no mechanism in place to do the check.
And that is $2 billion of New York taxpayer money.
Yes.
They haven't decided.
That's exactly right, $2 billion.
That's just a peanuts.
No, it's $2 billion of borrowed money.
Yeah.
Let's be clear, it's not taxpayer money. Yes.
Well, we have to pay the interest on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we could be sitting here at this point next year, and that line could still look exactly the same because the money's not available.
No, when I saw it, I started to worry because, as you know, one of my hobbies is to look into this testing madness. And I remember at your December presentation, you started to demonstrate this computer-assisted testing idea that these big multi-billion-dollar testing companies have as a way to make even more money. And so there's been a lot of talk about investments that local school districts now have to make in the software and the equipment to facilitate this testing. There's nothing in here.
No, they're not, it's not software, but you need the equipment. First of all, we own all of the equipment if we have to do it. Second of all, we told the state we won't do it this year. Third of all, we're not doing it next year.
Good, all right, thank you.
So,
Thank you.
but to answer your question, yes, I have the capacity in this district to do it if we had to, because we have enough computers in district to meet the minimal test requirements, because believe it or not, I had to certify that 5 years ago.
And this is my final question, and this is obviously out of our control, but let's call it the health and dental insurance costs under 9060, almost at the end of the budget. It is a 10% increase in health and dental insurance. So
Yes, I sit on that, and they projected at the last meeting an 8 to 12% increase in their rates.
$200,000.
And we don't really have control of this. The rates will be out within the next few weeks, so we'll have more of an idea exactly what it is. So hopefully it won't be, I did go a little high, hopefully it won't be that much.
There is at least something to be said for 9010. That I never see that. That actually goes down, the TRS, the ERS.
Yes.
Right? I mean, holy mackerel, that's like crazy. So that's at least good to see, yeah.
When the market crashed, they were hurrying and had to hold for that announcement.
So could you explain 5530?
Yes.
You asked about that, right?
Well, you will see over the course of the next month or so, been through a lot of transition, and things have gone through and not been coded to the correct lines.
Okay.
So I'm trying to clean that up. And 5530, that is the lease for the bus garage.
Oh, okay.
And historically, that's come out of the buildings and grounds maintenance budget, and really, it shouldn't be there. It should be in transportation, because realistically, it's a transportation expense. So if you look back in 1620, I reduced that by 35,000. Okay. 2,400, it's a negative 35,000.
Oh, 1624. You mean 1620-400?
Correct. I'm sorry, I'm speaking of budget.
I was with you.
Oh, I see, okay, now I see it.
So I did reduce that line.
So contractual is decreased by 35,000 under 6M20-400.
Oh, you have it.
And I do have to leave some money in the contractual line, in the 1620 line, because there are some contractual expenses that buildings and grounds and maintenance incur. And some of our contracts for that area were not charged to that line. So as I go through the next few weeks, I'll be cleaning up some things. So you'll probably see some changes in the next one as well.
Fantastic.
Anything else?
Ruth, just a question on that health insurance, 90/60. So is that 8 to 12% somehow related to Affordable Health Care Act?
No. I do not believe it is, because we take care of our own reporting for ACA. I did all the work here in-house. So it's not something the insurance company is charging back for rates.
The Affordable Care Act does not actually cost us here in Eldred any additional money.
We did not, no, because we did not contract out to have the reporting done.
Well, no, not directly, but I mean, in terms of the requirements and the mandates within the law itself, actually increase the premium for the insurance that we buy.
No, it did not increase, not on the insurance, and it also did not increase our costs by having to supply it due to the regulations and time hours. Because I went through and canvassed all of our employees, and anybody who did qualify, who offered the health insurance, declined it. So we are not having any expenses related to that.
Looking at 2250,
My
BOCES
God.
services, $300,000.
Yes, that's, special ed, we had some more children, some in special ed programs, so we have to budget for that. And those are expenses, and there's nothing you really can do about it.
Yes, they are.
Carol, can speak to that.
Well, I can, and I've been going to the BOCES meetings, and we've been doing a lot of budgeting also, and there's been a great trend over the last, I shouldn't say great, I don't mean like good, I just mean a great difference in the funding or in the class size. So we used to have what was called 12 students to one teacher to one aide. 12-1-1 was the state, that's the federal way to describe a class that for special ed children that gives you those 2 teachers and 12 kids, so it's a 6-to-1 ratio. Now, the biggest impact, because the districts have asked for it and need it because of the level of the children that we're asking them to serve. In other words, we're keeping money more of our own children and sending the ones with the greatest needs up to BOCES. So now the numbers have become mostly 8-1-3, 8-1-2, 8-1-3.
813, you have a waiver on an 812.
Okay, so that's 8 students, 1 teacher, and 2 3 aides. Now that may also be, there could in addition be independent one-on-one aides. The upside of 8-1-3 classrooms is that there are less one-on-one aides in those classrooms needed because you've got 4 adults to 8 children. So you do not need one-on-ones, which saves the district because that's all our cost. That's not, BOCES doesn't have any cost in a one-on-one. So, but we share the cost in an 813. So BOCES' budget is looking very, very similar to this kind of budget. We are, holding it 0. We're trying to hold it 0. There's not any great dental, there's not any great expense and no new expenses. We are looking for a superintendent. We want that to go as quickly as possible. But we've just started that process. But we did get permission, if you will, from the state to remain a viable BOCES. So we are not going to get incorporated or absorbed into Orange Ulster or Dutchess or any of the others.
The other thing is we get aid on our BOCES placements, and the key drivers of our expenses over the past several months are high-cost placement for highly autistic children that we have in the district, and some students that have mental health issues that require psychiatric treatment programs, and all of those, whether they are BOCES or not, are very expensive.
They're very
placements.
expensive. And there is high-cost aid that we get back, but much like you were talking about with the other aids that we're supposed to get back, the computer funding and whatever, you don't get it the year. So we could have a family move in with 3 autistic children, and we would need to educate them. That's our duty and our necessity. But we would not get money back from the state for that high cost that we had to put out. We would eventually.
The next year you would get it.
You've got to hope it's the next year. Have you ever seen their office? It's stacked like this on the floor with piles of paper. So they're so far behind, it's just
Post.
yeah.
When it comes to our special ed kids, the need drives the program,
Yes.
not the cost.
Absolutely. And we can't budget less and try to cut here because these are children's programs.
We did 4 placements over the past 4 months that accounted for most of that cost increase. That we did not factor into this year's budget, but we don't have a choice.
And it goes both ways. We can have a family move out just as easily as we have a family move in. And then Liberty picks up that family and we get a different family from Monticello and then, it's just, that's just the way it is. For the years that I spent here in special ed, it was like in and out the door. It's just the way it is. So, but we can't budget ahead.
No.
We only know what we've got now. You don't know what's coming next Monday.
Right, exactly.
So I know we're still working on the revenue side of this, but in the expenses, with the goal of saying, were there any notable sacrifices, things that we would have liked to include that we just?
Well, we took out all of the money to buy any buses.
But we're supplementing it with the plans that I told you.
Yeah.
Right,
We
we're
put up a
looking at
separate bond issue
five-year
for a
plans.
subsequent school year for that. So I don't want it to sound, we took it out this year because the used buses aren't working. They're not the solution.
Right.
We need new buses that'll have a life expectancy to it. So the plan that we're going to put forward is to put up a separate referendum every other year to buy 3 new buses.
Right, I mean, we have to work on a plan to get new buses.
And we don't get
because-
aid on those used buses, but we get on the new buses.
What about 1621? We have 0 budget for equipment, high school and elementary.
Yes, I know, most of the equipment money did get cut as well. I did keep some in different areas. I think I kept some in 1620, but not in 1621. And 1621 was a truck anyway. We were buying a
759
truck for a new snowplow truck because our current plow truck is starting to show some real wear from the stalls.
Yeah.
And that, so that's what that is.
Also 1621 building repairs?
Yes, we did do a lot of building repairs this year in the budget.
We're taking a break this year.
We'll hopefully not do.
We did an extensive amount of it.
Yes.
So we're going to take a buy year. We got pretty much caught up. We did a lot of work last summer.
That
Not to
includes the
say we're
parking
not
lot.
So
proactive.
the parking lots of both buildings, whole way up here, refurbishing the 2 classrooms at the elementary school. We did a significant amount of work last summer, and it was like a leap forward. It's not where we really want to be, but it's much better than where we were. And to answer your question, Brian, there's no programming cuts in here. Matter of fact, we are eliminating the teaching assistant position here up at the high school and turning it into a full-time special ed teacher position because we have that flexible team up here.
Thank you.
Thank you
Very much.
Thank you. Okay. That brings us to the first of our public comments. This, again, is limited just to our consent agenda items, 4.01 to 7.05. So anything that's on our consent agenda that someone feels the need to make a comment about, we appreciate that now. Yes, sir.
I would just like to comment once more on the social media policy. All I'm going to say is that, although I agree with the intent of what it's for, I wish it would have been rewritten a little bit, and less of the vague language that can be used. So even though it seems that it won't be changed, I don't necessarily think that will be a problem, because I think that comes down to enforcement, and there's no way this will or can be enforced, so that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, can I get a motion to accept our consent agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yes, Doug, I'm going to ask again for 704 to be removed from the consent agenda, so I can vote for the rest of it, but not 704.
So you want the code of conduct to be removed? Okay, so
Yeah.
so then we'll need a different motion excluding 704.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, now can we have some discussion? Okay, good. So then we're going to vote on all the consent agenda less 704. And Ryan?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Linda? Yes. Amador?
Yes.
And I'll say yes. So now we need a motion to accept 704. And a second?
Second.
Okay, is there discussion?
Yeah, the reason I'm voting against it is ironic, because I'm actually the person who brought this forward on the behalf of the constituent who asked us to include social media language in our code of conduct. But I suspect that the language that we've included is not exactly what that constituent was looking for. And we've now had 3 people speak in opposition to the code of conduct and 0 people speak in favor of it. So for that reason, I'm voting no.
Okay. Like, my response to that would be that, or my interpretation of that would be that you have to come up with a policy that is somewhat vague and count on our administration to interpret and subsequently enforce it. I mean, just.
Yeah, I'm not even concerned about the vagary, because I don't think we have anybody who would have used vague language who would enforce the policy. I'm not worried about that at all. I know that that's the concern that some of the members of the public have. My concern is that when we first discussed this code of conduct, and I don't want to belabor this, but I think one of you, my colleagues here, I think somebody actually said what we should do is, rather than do a policy that would be enforceable by punishment, to do something where we actually provide some education. In other words, that the policy would be written in a way more to give guidance on what appropriate behavior would be online, what the consequences would be for that. And I don't see that in the language, and that's not a big deal, because you guys support it, I don't. So I wish it could be better, and but I'm ready to move on. I'll vote no, you guys will vote yes, and I'll support it.
Well, the reason that I support it is because it was drafted by, NISBA and their policy service. That's, so.
I'm with you, Doug, but we provided examples that were drafted by New York City Department of Education and a school in New Jersey, which Mr. DeFort clearly explained New Jersey's different because they have different laws, but we didn't include any of those things. And again, I'm not going to ask for the administration to go back and redo the policy. I just think that it could have been better.
So you think it could have been stronger?
Yeah, I mean, not even in terms of enforcement, Doug. I don't think that, I'm not worried about vague language. I think the word was something like inappropriate or inflammatory, and there was some discussion about whether, somebody would abuse that. In other words, we'd say that something, some political stance might be inflammatory. I don't think that that's going to happen. I really don't. The piece that's missing is the piece that said, look, here's what happens when you behave inappropriately on social media. You misrepresent your school in a way that has consequences to the school. You jeopardize your ability to get a job because now people are, when they're interviewing you, are looking at your social media behavior. You put your family at risk. It was very clear, and it was actually a really nice piece that would educate our students as opposed to be an enforceable, punishable policy. So I thought that one of you had suggested that, as I brought it up, that we should have some education behind it.
Well, Mr. Krebs, correct me if I'm wrong, when we do the student handbook can basically, can deviate from our code of conduct, not deviate from it, but add to it, enhance the code of conduct in ways to...
The student handbook portion that is in front of the code of conduct is typically a more plain language version of the code of conduct. And if you're kind of looking for a little bit more of an educational stance to that, that might be an opportunity to put it in at that
That's what I
point in
mean.
time.
Yeah.
But I would need some guidance on what you would want to put in there so it becomes a more, I wouldn't say liberal, but more realistic understanding of what you really mean from that portion.
It's more real time too, because it
Yeah.
specifies some of the specific social media behaviors and venues that could cause trouble. So again, New York City put together a really nice guide. I forwarded that on. I'm glad to share that again. That sounds like a really good idea.
So we could incorporate something like that
Yes.
in the student handbooks. Okay. Okay, so then let's vote. Brian?
No.
Carol?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Amador?
Yes.
I'll say yes as well. Okay, that takes us to old business. So we're looking for Hall of Fame, is seeking candidates for induction in the June 2016 graduation. Nomination forms are available on the district website and at the district clerk's office. And we need the nominations as soon as possible, okay? The veterans exemption was 8.02, and I think we handled that,
Okay, thank you.
okay? That takes us to new business. We have a board vacancy, Board of Education seat vacancy for the expired term of Mr. Laput. New 5-year term from July of 2016 through June of 2021. Petitions are available at the district clerk and must be filed with the office by April 18th.
I can add to that. I'd like to present to Ronnie Robertson, the district clerk, a petition for re-election to the school board.
Thank you. Okay.
Brian.
That was a roaring.
The district budget vote is May 17th, 2016, from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. here at the junior senior high school.
It'll be downstairs in Mr. Jennings' office, which is the first room next to that side entrance where the handicap parking is.
Same as we had
Yes.
last time. And Mrs. Robertson is going to tell us all about our optical scanner machine.
Well, we are not allowed to use the lever machines any longer by New York State law. So all the district clerks in the county met with the Board of Elections in Monticello. And they were very, very helpful in explaining the use of the optical scanner and our abilities to do that. And basically, our vote will run exactly the same way, but we will use the optical scanner instead of the lever machine.
So what does it do? How does it work?
It reads the ballot and we have to.
Oh, we mark the ballot?
You have a sample ballot.
Mhm.
We would have to buy those and you base the purchase of the amount of ballots you buy, and they're 48 cents a ballot.
Seriously?
Yep. And you have to go about 10% above your average, well, suppose.
To have enough.
Yeah, so you have enough. And the worst part of that, if you ran out of ballots, you could go paper ballot.
Scantron, you mean?
Yeah.
Now you got it.
So
That's kind of what this is.
we're over a barrel. We don't have a choice as far as 40 cents a page. You can't look for a better price
If you
from
look
someone
at
else.
Bonnie's breakdown,
Yeah, I did
we
see
actually
that.
budgeted extra money, but to explain the machine, that's what this is. It's a
Okay.
Scantron ballot.
And it's proprietary, so in other words, we can't, it's like Keurig. You can't buy anything else but Keurig for Keurig. You can't buy anything else for these scan machines.
We would have no use for this machine
Yeah.
other than for the election. So it makes sense to rent it with the expert
Yes.
to run it.
Okay.
There's one machine. One
They
machine.
say that we would only need one machine with one setup space for people to do the ballot. You need to have a county person that is able to work the machine. That's what they suggest, that you have to have a county inspector. And actually, the people that we've used are approved inspectors, so that's neither here nor there on that part.
The only downside of this is it's a two-sided ballot, and there's no other way to get around that. So your budget vote is on one side, your board people would be on the other. So it's really up to your inspector when they hand the ballot to the voter to very well explain, you need to vote for the budget on one side or the bad candidate on the other. So that's, in the explanation of the voting process.
The person who stands next to them, so you walk in and you fill out your ballots at sort of like a cubicle table. And then, well, first you walk in, you get your ballot, somebody talks to you, you go fill it out. Then, when you're done filling it out, you bring it to the machine. There's somebody at the machine. Is that person who's at the machine allowed to look at the ballot to see that it's voted? Not who's voted, but that there's a vote on both sides. Are they allowed to do that?
I do not believe that.
And that's a county worker, right?
That's it.
Do you do that things at all consulting towns?
We do in our town. Everybody here now votes that way on their town.
Don't they have a folder you can put it in so that no one can see it?
Not
Not like, we just bring our ballot up there.
The county did say they provide a sleeve that the ballot goes in, because no one is supposed to.
But then you have to take it out of the sleeve.
You put it in the machine, you just,
But prior to somebody getting their hands on the ballot, you can explain it as many times as you want. So that's going to be the important part.
We'll have big posters up also.
Two-sided.
well, and I think that's it, it's all in the educational process. I worked real hard to consolidate our voting books, so there's only 4 books now. So we'll need less people on the table, because that's always a hard thing to staff. But Sullivan West used the machines for their budget vote last year, and they had 3 voting stations, like 3 locations, and it went off without a hitch.
Really?
Yeah.
With one in each?
Without a hitch.
One in
each location?
Yes. Yeah, because they vote in 3 different spots.
Do they
So I
have
guess-
double-sided ballots too?
Everyone does.
Why can't they put the budget on the same thing?
You start that company.
I-
Start that company, I'll vote for it.
Yeah.
This is kind of, from what Bonnie said, this is kind of what they said, this is what we're gonna do.
This is it.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it.
So these machines, I guess they must be more reliable and less prone to break down than the metal machines, because I remember we talked about the fact that our metal machines, one was a backup. And that's why we couldn't have voting at 2 different locations, because we have to have both. So we don't have a backup. So what happens in the case of the machine?
We'll probably have paper ballots.
You can do ballots, you can continue to do ballots. There's a spot on the machine where you put the ballots
You
in.
just can't scan them,
You
okay?
can't scan
And
it
it has to
back
be manually
and
calculated.
But the county guarantees in your memorandum of understanding that if a machine breaks down, that guy will be here.
I'm gonna need a vote on this from you folks, because Larry last year did build a little extra into the budget, because he kind of
Okay.
anticipated this. Cost isn't much of a difference, it's about $700, but I have to sign the contract, and I need your authorization to do that.
So this is the motion right here, right, to approve the use of the optical scanner machine for Eldon Central School voting purposes, and to allow the superintendent to sign a corresponding MOU with Sullivan County Board of Elections. I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Brian?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Amador?
Yes.
I'll say yes. What are you gonna do?
Thank you.
Gotta do it.
Thank you.
Gotta have them back. Okay, thank you, Mrs. Robertson. That takes us
So
to...
I have one item under new business.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Apologize, something just came up today. Linda, we talked about this a little bit today. You had some concerns, which you...
I'd rather not.
We're gonna put this off.
No, we're not.
Yes, we are.
No, Doug,
Yeah,
we're-
yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna ask.
well, then I'll bring it up under new business, okay?
No. No,
What, why?
I contacted our attorney. This is executive session material.
No, I disagree, though.
I do.
But our attorney did.
Well, listen, Doug, I didn't have a chance to consult with the attorney, and I think we have to have this discussion.
No. I would prefer So, you know, if we're gonna hire an attorney and take the advice of our attorney, if we're gonna hire an attorney and pay our attorney, then we should take the advice of our attorney.
Doug, I'll have to ask for an executive session to discuss what the attorney shared with you, and then we can reconvene and figure out whether we should bring this up under new business.
I asked the question, that's all.
What was the question?
I asked the question. I asked, you know,
If this could be brought up in public.
yes,
If what could be brought
if
up?
this conversation could be had. in
Well, I'm not
public.
sure that I understand what conversation we're talking about. I didn't even say what question I have yet.
Well, I'm concerned that you will, and we're not supposed to.
I'm sure that I'll ask this question in a way that's legally appropriate.
Okay,
But I don't like to try that. If
Can
I-
I make a suggestion?
yes.
There is one other item that you need to immediately address.
Yes.
I would support your suggestion that we go into executive
Mhm.
and then make a determination then.
Okay.
Okay, also, I have to request an executive for specific personnel matters, so I'd like to use that time to address that at that time as well.
I would, so the basis for my question is communications that we have that the public are not privy to. And I don't think that it would be appropriate to go in an extended executive session to make that determination whether we discuss that, dismiss the public, and then have that discussion with no public present. So if we're going to have an executive session to discuss what Doug talked to the lawyer about, let's do that on its own, reconvene back here so the public can.
We can reconvene either
Thank you.
way.
Thank you.
I'm just saying, rather than going back and forth, back and forth, back and
Okay.
forth.
Yeah, that makes
You
sense.
wanna make-
Do you want to
Yes. it'll
do
be
this?
fine. Yeah, that's good. I mean,
Okay, so let's, Mr. Schatt shared with us a communication. Do you want to speak to this, Alan?
If I may,
Please.
most of you may remember me as a past supervisor of the town of Highland. I was there for 10 years, and believe me, this is not one subject that I would want to be down there with right now. You know, I'm involved with it because I'm very concerned about it. And I did drop that letter off, and I'm glad you did have a chance to read it. I'm here tonight to ask for your help. We need all the help we can get, and we need everyone in the town, county, and all the towns that are surrounding us, and we need a lot of help. There's a gas compressor station. I keep trying to say generator. I know. I keep trying to say generator. It's a gas compressor station that's going to be built right up here on Route 55. It's only going to be 3 miles from the school. It's a 20,500 horsepower compressor. That's half the size of the one that's in Hancock and half the size that's one in Menacing. If you guys have been reading the papers, you hear all the bad things that are happening in those towns with kids having nosebleeds and everything else. It's not just nosebleeds, it's noise, and this is going to be twice the size. This could emit more emissions, more harmful particles. Halfway Brook, which is just the other side of this hill right here, is right there. I mean, that's, my club is headquarters of Halfway Brook, and it flows right through the area where the compressor is going to be. You know, that water, of course, goes right to the Delaware, right down to the cities. You know, they use that for drinking water. This is a DEC established trout stream. And it's just so much that is bad about these compressors that, you know, the chemicals that come out of this thing. And all you have to do is read the newspaper. I'm not going to go into all that. But the towns of Lumberland, Highland, Bethel, and Tustin have done resolutions against opposing this compressor station, as well as I was at the county today, and they have also done a resolution not to have it in the town, in the county at all. I'm asking the board tonight to make a motion to ask your attorney to draw up the resolution opposing this compressor station. You may want to have your attorney contact the towns in the county to see how their resolution is being, you know, printed or made, to get, you know, all the wherefores and therefores in there. You know, you can't really vote on the resolution tonight. You just don't want to say you oppose it. You want to make sure the reasons why you are opposing it. So I would, you know, I'm asking you to at least to do a motion tonight to ask your attorney to draw up a resolution opposing this gas generator, or compressor.
You'll get it right.
You know, I sell generators in the store, so I got these things in my head. So that's why I'm here tonight. I mean, and basically I have a lot more in the letter, but I'm not gonna, you all have it right in front of you.
Yes, and thank you. So, what do you think, guys?
Well, Amador and I attended the Town of Highland meeting last night. Was it last night?
Tuesday night.
And there had to be 20 people, maybe more, who stood up in opposition.
Oh, 20 stood up, right?
Who stood up and
50
spoke in
people,
It was
opposition.
standing room only in that meeting room.
There were people with personal anecdotes of what happened over in Pennsylvania. There was a pediatrician who was talking about some of the health effects. There were, parents who were specifically concerned about our athletes up at the fields here at the school. There was not a single person who spoke in favor of it. So clearly the consensus in the town of Highland was that they opposed this. And on that basis, the town of Highland directed their attorney to draft a resolution. I just share that with you.
Yes. So why don't we get our attorney to talk to the town of Highland attorney and come up with similar language that we can put forth a resolution here for next meeting.
Well, you can vote, and basically, you can do what the town authorize their attorney to draw up a resolution, so you can authorize me to have our attorney consult with the town's attorney, and we will adopt the same resolution, worded.
So moved.
Okay.
Like you said.
But it'll go through the
Second.
attorney as well.
I'll have our attorney contact the town's attorney.
Yes, and work together
we'll
for
use the
one.
same-
Work together for
We'll
the
work
same
with the town
language.
to do it.
Sure.
You're
And
gonna
I'll call Jeff and talk to him.
You're gonna want it a little bit specific, to the school also, you're gonna wanna talk about the students, the faculty, everybody, that works right here within the
Proximity
area.
to the compressor station.
Yeah.
Well, that could be one of the whereases in there.
That's the problem. The kids, they run up that way all the time,
Sure, our cross-country kids
I'm
are
not
in that
good.
direction.
Not only that, you do have students that live right in the area up there.
And you're gonna have to sign it, so
Yeah.
I'll send it out to you so you can review it in advance, and then I'll make arrangements for each to come in and sign.
Okay, so Bonnie, do you have something in writing? Do you want to read that back to us then?
Motion.
Or not?
Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to contact the school's attorney, directing her to speak with the town of Highland to propose a resolution that the board will pass on the compressor station.
In opposition.
To draft a resolution in opposition to the proposed compressor station.
Okay, so can we get that, someone make that motion, please?
Carol did?
Carol did, I'm sorry, you want a second?
I second.
Okay, any other discussion? Brian?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Linda? Yes. And Amador?
Yes.
And I'll say yes as well. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Shep.
Appreciate it. Okay, so this is taken care of. So why don't we take 2 minutes and adjourn for a brief executive session, and we'll be right back. Can
Point of order. You need to take a vote to go into executive.
Yeah, I don't make that motion.
Yeah.
For executive session.
And Brian second?
Second.
Any discussion?
used to forget to do that in the town.
Then Brian?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Amador?
Yes.
We'll be right back, guys. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Brian?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Amador?
Yes.
And I'll say yes.
I have an item for new business, though.
Yes, sir.
All right. I'd like to make I'll give you the punchline first, and then I'll kind of describe it, okay? The punchline is, I would like to ask for a board workshop for the 5 of us to define our goals and our roles and responsibilities. I think there's an opportunity. We had a couple of workshops to talk about legal issues and other types of things. But I think there's a real opportunity, being that I'm a new board member. There hasn't been a new board member in many years. And I think I have a different perspective than each of you. I'm sure you all have your own perspectives too. But the thing is that I think there's a little bit of a culture shock to me bringing some crazy, whacked out ideas to this board. And sometimes it doesn't, it doesn't kind of sit well with some of you. And I think it's because we might see our roles and responsibility in a different way. Okay? So for example, here's one of my crazy ideas, the cookies and coffee in the back of the room. Right? Nobody eats the cookies. I take the cookies home. I've been 15 pounds since I've been on the board. The coffee.
Oh, no, you and Griffin.
Yes.
Yes. You and Griffin.
I won't comment on it.
I told you before.
It's gonna send them cookies. But you,
What did I say I was
Mr.
gonna do?
DeFore said he's gonna send them home with me and tell my kids that he sent them home. The problem is when I get home, they're asleep, so I eat them. So the point is that that's one of the ideas, but the basis for that idea, guys, was that I wanted to try in some way, I felt a responsibility to, based on what I heard as I was campaigning for school board, to find a way to expand beyond just the 5 of us. Right? We're 5 people, we have a lot of diverse experience, actually a really nice mix of it. But we don't have all the answers. And out there in our community is a tremendous diversity of experience and talent, particularly lately with some of the new people that are moving, with second homes and summer homes from New York City. They're world-class chefs and artists and musicians and historians. And I think that for the longest time, we tried to answer all these questions ourselves with our own staff and our own faculty and maybe our own board members. And so I'm desperately trying, in a way that obviously doesn't come across very clearly, to re-engage those parts of our community, get those ideas to come in here, to be more progressive in our thinking. And I do it inartfully sometimes, I think, because people sort of reach out to me probably first before they may reach out to you guys, only because I banged on everybody's door a million times. Or maybe I'm the new board member or whatever. Maybe I'm active on Facebook and I communicate a lot and I get carried away. But the fact is that I think that it's important for us as board members to go out into the community and interact with constituents as board members, but not on behalf of the board. And I think it's important that we're clear to do that, but I do think it's important. I get the sense that some of you may believe that any interactions we have with the public, if we're not identifying ourselves as purely parents or purely taxpayers not attached to the board, is inappropriate. And I think we do have a role to play as individual board members in terms of reaching out to our constituents. I also think that we each have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we need to use them in that proportion, okay? So it's important to go out there and get all these ideas and bring them back here. I do agree that it's important that we don't take that feedback and go immediately to the administrator. Like, it wouldn't be appropriate for you, Linda, to go, get an idea and then say, hey, Mr. DeFore, go do this. All right, that's micromanagement. I've heard that word a lot. But I do think it's important to get that feedback and bring it back here. So my suggestion is, because I think we need to hash this out, is that we do a board workshop and we explore that and the topic of open meetings law and the appropriate communication
So
structure.
can you phrase that as a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we schedule a board workshop to explore our roles and responsibilities as individual board members and as a collective group, and to fully explore all the details of open meetings law.
I make a suggestion for a workshop or workshops.
Yes.
Sounds like quite a book.
Workshop, open parentheses, as closed.
Yeah, I'm just saying, because it sounds like it might be too much for one.
I'll second that motion.
Just,
Any further discussion? Any discussion? I think it's a tremendous idea, Brian, and you bring up some valid points, and I appreciate that. So,
Listen, and I don't want to, I don't want you to misunderstand this. I'm actually very proud of the board for some of the things that we've been able to do, even though we started off with kind of a contentious election and kind of a contentious onboarding and all that stuff. When we came together, Linda and I worked together in a subcommittee. Doug, you and I sat at McDonald's one night for 2.5 hours thinking about how we're going to do the resolution. I'm proud of that. But I do think that the board has to change its approach. Okay, my campaign signs changed the school board. I didn't mean that in a personal attack way. It has to change. So that's what I'm trying to suggest.
okay. Any other discussion? Then let's vote. Brian?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Amador?
Yes.
And I'll say yes. Any other new business? Okay, that takes us to public comments.
I'd just like to thank the board again for what you did tonight for the veterans. Thank you very much again
You guys
for all the
are very
veterans. Thank you.
And I'm impressed.
Because he remembered it 2 years ago.
you sat in the same seat.
He did it. Wore the same hat.
And I think
The same hat, that's what it is.
That's right.
And I'd be proud to wear it as well, so thank you.
Thank you kindly.
Any other,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
yes, ma'am?
Hi, my name is Beth Dearman. I've just been thinking a lot about life in the school, particularly the elementary school, because that is what I'm most familiar with. And I just wanted to share some thoughts with the board and just put it out onto public record about the importance of exercise throughout the day for students. I know that the teachers do a great job, really, during the day, having brain breaks and trying to do things in the classroom to get the kids active. But there has been a lot of research that has been coming out lately, both qualitative research and anecdotal stories, as well as randomized controlled studies and quantitative research that's been coming out that really is talking about the benefits of exercise throughout the day for students and how it affects their academic abilities, as well as their ability to pay attention, their ability to even socialize with each other, and all of these incredible things that happen through adding in exercise throughout the day. And so I would really, really hope that as a district we can start considering ways that we can add more exercise into the daily routine for all of our students, not just the elementary kids, but the high school as well. I honestly have no idea what happens on the high school level, and I'm sorry. I did try to do a little bit of research, but I started a little too late. So I wasn't able to get answers that I was looking for. So, but, you know, to see if we can have something that's more than, you know, like a 2-minute brain break that the teachers are trying to do something where the kids are, you know, stretching or doing jumping jacks in the classroom. Can we add in a school-wide exercise program where everyone does it in the morning? If everybody gets together, or every classroom does the same Zumba routine or some sort of, I don't know, something every day, and everyone does it together at the same time. Because really that's going to get the kids to be able to pay attention more with the teachers. It's going to, the kids who have more behavioral challenges, the kids who have more academic challenges, it really is going to help them. So I would like, as a district, to look at that a little bit more and see how we can implement it into the daily routine of all students. And I can give you all of the research that I found if you would like. So much, but.
I actually read it all, because a lot of it came out in the last couple of months. And I've already forwarded that to the scheduling committee at Mackenzie. So they're meeting tomorrow. And I'm waiting to see what they bring back. But I know exactly what you're talking about when you started discussing it, because I had read all of that research, and I shared that all with the schedule committee. So it's being looked at.
Wonderful. Thank you. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug, I just want to follow up on
Sure.
that. I didn't bring up in my earlier comments. One of our responsibilities, of course, is to set policy. And we have the wellness policy, which I expressed my concern about and voted against. And so there's a wellness committee. I reached out to Mr. DeFore to see if he would be open to community members participating on the wellness committee. Beth is one of them. We have others who have expertise in nutrition and gardening and culinary arts and exercise and psychology. And I think that, you know, these kind of ideas that are supported by research are going to be expressed in the wellness committee and will help us inform an actual wellness policy that's different and that's more than just no cupcakes at birthday parties. Okay, a real wellness policy. So that's sort of one of those things where if we bring in people from the community, that they can do a lot of work for us for free.
I was just sharing something with, based on what you were just talking about, I was just sharing something with Jenny. There's a lot of staff development available out there on what's called active learning. Mm-hmm. My concern is that if we take more exercise time away from academics, we hurt, because we have, because we have such a minimum amount of time with kids that we wish we had more. But there is what's called active learning, where you actually learn on your feet. Right. You vote with your feet. You go to this corner of the room, that corner of the room. You visit there. I've seen oodles of this kind of stuff done. We can look for a good trainer and try to get more at life into our academic day, more activity.
Yes. Can I continue on that?
You had your hand
Oh,
up.
sorry.
No, she can go first.
Yes, that is so true. And just having, movement throughout the day, absolutely. But also looking into having, students sit on physio ball chairs.
Yeah.
So that way they're also getting sensory input into their whole body, not just on their bum. Exercise bikes, stationary bikes in the classroom, standing desks. There's a whole bunch of
We actually
things.
use standing desks in both buildings.
Oh,
And did you
great.
see the article this week concerning opening the therapy rooms to the gen ed students?
I did not see that, no.
I'll try to send it to you tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay, short article, but it's basically making the OT room,
Yeah,
the sensory room open for gen ed students.
that's fantastic.
But I'll pull that up and I'll send that out to you tomorrow.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. DeFleur, I appreciate it.
Hello, Joanna Dutcher. I just want to piggyback on Beth with what you had said. Nothing against what you had said at all, because we're actually doing some active learning in my, used to be called inclusion classroom, now it's co-integrated, whatever. But we have students that are on the spectrum, we have students that are high functioning gen ed students and everything, and we do movement more than just a snippet. And we have seen our scores in our class, and we've actually had the other second grade classes in my building do the same thing, where we'll actually stop. And I know it's hard when you have to take from academic time. We have NWA and testing and all that other good stuff. But since we've implemented at least 10 minutes a day, and I know 10 minutes is hard, but where we actually do some kind of active movement, our test scores and our self-esteem and our creativity, you can actually see the increase. I mean, we have a student that at the beginning of the year, he could not even recognize his own name. This is second grade. Now he is so creative, not second grade level at all creative, but there's that vast improvement. And a lot of that we believe is we do yoga one day, we do Zumba-like, because Ms. Dutcher can't Zumba at all. We do this program that, I don't remember the site that we go to, but it came to us from Liberty, that they do with their kindergartners. We do that with our second graders, and it's so much fun. We do it smack in the middle of the day when they're starting to get their little, hi, I'm 7, I don't have to listen to you. And it's really making a big difference. I know I talk a lot when I come here about my second graders, but that's where I'm from. And I used to do it with my 7th graders when I used to teach middle school, and it's a big difference. It's, you get a kid that's throwing a chair at you, and now I'm babysitting his children when he has work overnight because of the differences that these things make. I think it can't only be academic. And I know that you all know that. I mean, I actually really like this board, and
It's nice to hear the encouragement for us to move forward on something like that.
Yes,
It's
please.
wonderful.
I do have some
Yeah.
thoughts on what both of you said, and I'm sorry, Carol, I have to disagree with you.
Okay.
Sometimes scientific research contradicts common sense in a way that just is kind of, really blows your mind, okay? You would think that you could increase academic achievement by focusing more on academic work. And quite honestly, the science is completely contrary, especially for younger children. So in Finland, and I might be wrong, it might be Sweden, it's one of the Scandinavian countries, based on tremendous amounts of scientific research, do you know that they actually delay any kind of introduction of academics until age 7? The reason they do that is because they found that it interferes with brain development and with the actual physiologic development of connections in the neurons of the brain. So later on in life, they find these kids are actually very engaged in school, and they do much, much better, even on terrible things like standardized test scores, right? So the fact is, they don't even start doing academics until age 7. Interestingly, they have universal funding for pre-K all the way down to age 3. So everybody in either Finland or Sweden goes to school for free. It's fully funded, but they don't do any academics until age 7. What I'm getting to is having kids sit on stationary bikes and do academic work might not be as valuable as actually sending them outside for 15 minutes and letting them run around and do nothing. except unstructured play. So in Finland, the other policy they have is they have 15 minutes of mandatory recess per hour of school.
Per hour of school?
Yeah, unstructured. They run around, they play, they come back, they recharge. So it does sound like it would be contradictory, like they're not spending as much time actually doing the math or doing the ELA or the science or the social studies, but ultimately they do better because kids' brains work that way. So when the scheduling committee is looking at the science, let's make sure that we're looking at a broad spectrum so that, and obviously we can't do that, but we can get close to it.
Sure.
And it's based on good science.
And it's not either or, I think it's both. I
It's a
think we
combination.
need more time for activity, we need more opportunities in this whole community for after and before school, and we certainly need more, academic learning that's fun and movement oriented.
I'm gonna leave because my daughter's falling asleep and probably breaking your door, but I just wanted to say one more thing, and thank you so much for letting me speak so much, but I think you have to watch what science you're looking at, because there's science that's saying that students should go to school at 10 o'clock in the morning because they're not getting enough sleep, but if those kids actually went to bed at a decent hour and didn't play electronics until 2 o'clock in the morning, they wouldn't need to go to school at 10 o'clock in the morning. And then also, there's also research that's now saying that students shouldn't be doing homework, which I don't agree with my 16 years of teaching, because it's an extension of the day. So they do need, even if it's 3 or 4 of each thing that you did, so that they can remember it for the next day. Because when they're not doing those 3 or 4 things at night, most kids that I know are playing video games. So I think that when we look at that the science says it, that we have to make sure that who is the science that's saying it. Not that I don't agree with you, Brian, believe me. I would love for my daughter to play more and whatever, but I think that, like, I read the same things that Beth read, and I know that there are real research things, and these people that are coming out that kids should go to bed, like come to school at 10 o'clock in the morning, even though they're playing till 2 o'clock in the morning. We just have to watch what that science is.
I just think, in a general sense, it's nice to be discussing science because with all of the mandates and the pressure coming from the government, it's nice to empower our professional educators and administrators to make their own determinations based on science and not just do as we're told all the time.
Absolutely. Especially like with the music, when we talked about with music and stuff like that, how that is actually from psychologists and even music therapists and all that stuff, that gets the brain going, builds self-esteem and stuff like that. I just gotta watch where that's.
I have a poster, I'll have to donate it, I'm not sure to who. It says, when the bum is numb, the brain is done. Like that, I had it when I was a staff developer. I would always put it up on the wall and promise my people that I wouldn't talk forever, that we would do activity. When the brain is done, no, wait a minute. When the bum is numb, the brain is done.
Yes. I'm just going to be brief. When student council visited Fort Jervis in December, one of the biggest things that we saw was every 2 weeks or so, they had assemblies with sections of classes. So, well, like every 2 weeks there'd be a section of 12th graders that would have a short assembly, most of the time half of lunch, and they would talk about things like the AP courses, college courses. They would talk about why the school does certain things that it does in the way of budget. It's just like, it's really interesting. So the one thing that I proposed this last meeting is that I think, again, when we talk about the AP courses and the college courses and stuff, I think in one way or another, the students coming into 11th grade, because typically they're the students that are starting college classes, should be sort of educated on what the differences between AP and college, not only educated on the differences, but what will impact them when they get out of high school. Will most of them go to a private 4-year, will most of them go to a AUC or Sullivan as a 2-year? So since the majority of graduates go to a 2-year in a state school, it does show that college, the college courses by Sullivan would be better. However, I think that would be good for the students to decide if they understood what that means. It's a much more rigorous course, and the AP is very hard to get the credit. You have to get a certain test scrappage, and not a lot of people understand that. So even if it's an assembly or some type of newsletter or something that even goes home to the parents so they can sit and talk about it at home, I think it's very important because I didn't know the difference until the controversy came up. So that's all.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, then we need to have an executive session for personnel matter.
Make a motion that we go to.
And there will be no business afterwards, okay? So we have a motion, we have a second, yes, vote. Brian?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Yes? And I'll say yes. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.